Hi, everyone. May peace be on you all, and welcome to another episode of I'm a Muslim and That's Okay. And I am here with a whole Muslim segment. And it's the segment in which I feature Muslims who do unusual things. And it can't be any more unusual than my guest, Leah V, who is, sitting here reading her bio, okay? She's an author, body positivity activist, and the first international plus size model. Any one of those things could like win you tons of accolades, but you're all three. And I'm going through all the campaigns you've been featured in, everywhere you've been featured in, New York Times, the Vogue. You've done campaigns for Dove, Target, Delta, and everything. I'm telling you, Leah, you're making us look bad. Okay. You're making the rest of us look bad, but I am so happy to have you with me. How are you doing, Leah?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Doing great. I'm alive. So that's a good thing.
And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And I know that you have just come out with your second book, The Union. And
Yeah.
I'm going through this and I'm like, and I just told you, it's bringing up a lot of feelings for me. And we're going to get to
Also,
that. But
yeah.
before we get to that, Lievi, I want to ask you, how did you come into all of this? That's a lot of stuff. How did you come into being an author, a body positivity activist, and being a plus size model?
Well, it's a long story, but we'll give you the
Mhm.
short version, the entertaining version. Because I'm a Leo and I like to entertain.
Yeah.
And so to my own detriment, unfortunately. We'll get into that later. I I was it was supposed to be a writer, honestly.
Hmm.
The goal was to be a sci-fi author and dystopian author.
Right.
That was it. There was never I mean, look at me. There's no way 10 years ago that I would have made it in the modeling industry. Never.
Mm,
Without social media. Never would
right.
I have ever made it without social media, right? And that was like a new thing when I was growing up. So I'm 35. No one believes that I'm 35, but I am. I'm a black vampire. Clearly, black don't crack. And so the plan was I was always interested in modeling. I used
Mm,
to fawn over like America's Next Top Model
yeah.
and Tyra Banks, and I would like take my Payless heels and
Mm,
in the hallways, strut down the imaginary catwalk.
right.
But I knew I was too short, too fat, too Muslim to ever do it. So it was always in the back of my head.
Mm.
But I knew I would never make it. And so yeah, I tried to be an author. I wrote my first book at 16.
Oh,
Tried to get it
wow.
published. Yeah. It was crazy. I tried to write my first book at 16, wrote it. No one wanted it. I wrote another book 2 years later. No one wanted it. And at that point, I was so disgruntled. And I'm like, you know what? Who are you to think that you can write a book and get it published? You're a fat black girl from Detroit. You have no
Mm,
father. So just go to school, go to college, get a normal job.
right.
Everybody was like pushing me to get a real job, right? They're like,
Mm,
this book thing, people don't like, you don't do this. Like, why are you trying to do this? And I
right.
believe them. So for 5 years, which is the worst time of my life, I stopped writing
Oh,
for 5 years because I was like, you can't make this and make it as industry.
mm,
Um, Fast forward, people kept telling me I was photogenic,
mm,
and I never believed them because I had eating disorders and I had body dysmorphia. Again, terms that you don't really know back in the day. And so
right.
I just felt like the most ugliest thing ever. And so I
Mm,
was like, stop lying to me. People kept saying it, kept saying it. So I, for some reason, stumbled upon like kind of social media and hashtags,
mm,
like plus size model on Tumblr and stuff like that,
right.
Tumblr back in the day. And
Yeah.
I was like, I started seeing like big women with big boobs and big butts, like getting flown out and like
Mm,
had like some sexy partners and getting deals and stuff. And I'm like,
yeah.
what the heck is this? I'm like, this is a whole segment that I've never knew existed. Like where I
Right.
come from, plus size women are second class citizens. We get
Oh.
whatever's left. We don't have nothing. So I was just like, what the fuck is this? Who's been
Mm,
lying to me? And so I
yeah.
started to slowly build my confidence up and be like, yeah, you can be big and still like, I don't know, be cute and stuff. So I started like getting clearance rack items, getting clothes from stores and taking them back after photo shoots, digging into my friends' wardrobes, getting accessories, and on a grainy Android phone, we started taking pictures and we started posting them on Instagram.
But
And
here's the thing, Leah. I mean, I still go out, like, and when you're Muslim, okay, finding clothes that look nice and, have certain like requirements, modesty requirements, or any
right.
coverage requirements is hard. And
Mhm.
then when you have to look for clothes for a bigger person, a plus size person, it's even harder. That's what
Exactly.
I'm wondering. Like, how? Like, how did that happen?
So you have to be super creative, right?
Mm,
And mind you, my weight was up and down because I was still
mm,
had eating disorders during this time. I was
mm,
still big, but I was like smaller big. So
right.
I still had eating disorders, but I was always big.
Mm,
So you gotta learn how to layer. You gotta learn how to pull
mm,
from different things that are probably you gotta make the clothes. Don't let the clothes make you. And a lot of
yeah.
people like be like, oh, how do you dress so well? How do you do this? And it's just
Right.
like I have access to the same clothes you have, right?
Mm,
Unless you're like in a different country, then
right.
that's a different thing. But in
Right.
America, we all have access to the same clothes. We don't have as much
Right.
options than smaller size or straight size people. But I had to learn how to layer. I had to learn how to I like to say Muslimify it. And mind you, I'm not
Yeah.
the most modest Muslim dresser. I'm a lot risque sometimes.
Right.
But like I've seen like more like plus size Muslim girls still like do the same thing with like
Right.
layering, changing up the turban style, even getting things
Mm,
custom. Now I'm custom queen. All my stuff is tailored. And so or I get things custom made. But back in the
right.
day, I didn't have money. So
Right.
a bitch had to learn how to layer and I had to learn how to make these clearance rack items
Right.
fashion, honey. And I was able
Yeah.
to do that with very little budget.
Right. Right. And again, that was the struggle. So you started, you know, making your own fashion, okay? You've got your phone, you got the social media to get yourself out there. But still, it's a struggle, Leah V.
Right.
Um, most people, even now, like I'm like I'm not even in the modeling industry, but you see it. It's just that even with the plus size modeling industry coming up, but there is the discourse that they only want a certain kind of plus size model. Not
Right.
every plus size model makes it for very particular reasons. How
Exactly.
did you do it?
Um, yeah, honestly, I'm still shocked by how, I mean, I'm not very religious, but I'm very spiritual.
Mm.
And honestly, I would say it's a combination of that, it just being in my cards, but also I do not take no for an answer.
Oh
Um,
wow.
if you want to say no, I'm like, I'll see you in a year or two. I'm not
Wow.
gonna use you because you don't believe in it. But I'm gonna sit right next to you about a year or two from now. That's always been my mentality. You can
Mm,
see me as an underdog. You can disrespect me, undermine me. I'm going to get there. That's it. I don't have
right.
children. I don't have a man. Don't plan on having either one of those things. So all my
Mm.
time goes into my brand and me,
Oh
which is my
yeah.
child. And so with that, I'm very opportunistic, not in
Mm,
like a bad way, but
mm.
I'll take one thing that you say and I'll spin it into a whole opportunity.
Right.
I've always been
Right.
that person. I don't like try to mine for information, but I'm so personable and so genuine and so real that people are like, I want to give her information. And
Mm,
from that information, I'm able to basically spin it into opportunity.
right.
And I've been doing that. I also am very grassroots. So I
Mm,
like to when I go come to your country, your town, I'm meeting up with movers and shakers. I'm networking. I'm not just doing social media. People see me
okay.
like, oh, she's so cute, takes cute pictures. No, ma'am. No,
Mm,
ma'am. Behind the scenes, I'm doing so much more than the average person. I
right.
have a saying, I will outwork you.
Oh
If you're
wow.
doing two, I'm doing 4 or 5. That's it. And
Wow.
that has pushed me to be in situations that people who look like me are not usually in. Now, I'm not
Right.
saying it's not systematic racism or like fat phobia, all these things, but they see me working. They see me
Mm,
present. They see me pitching. They see me having lunches and having dinners and doing all the things.
right.
It's tiring, but I'm
It
doing it
is.
and it's helped my career tremendously by putting myself in uncomfortable spaces.
Right. But it's hard, Leovie. I mean, I mean, Union is not the first book you wrote.
Right.
So I've read Unashamed, your musings of the fat Black Muslim. And this is basically, and for anybody who can't see me, I'm holding up her book. The fact is that this sort of encompasses all of those struggles and all the ways you've broken through so many barriers that you had going for you. It wasn't easy. And this is very raw reading for anybody out there. Please do pick it up, do read it. This is one of the most rawest things that I've read in a while when it comes to human experiences. But again, it was a very stark, I guess, reality check for me about how hard this was for you, having to go through everything, every struggle that you had to go through ever since you were a kid, all the way up to facing this discrimination that you face again as a fat Black Muslim woman. I mean, like 4 out of 5. If you were queer, okay, Leah, that would have been like, it's all done.
That's done.
It would have everything stacked against you now, Leah. Okay?
Man, if I was, and I tried so hard to be gay, but just I can't. So all my friends are gay. They're like, come to the other side. I'm like, I want to, guys.
We're trying.
I can't. It's too much.
But that's the thing. 4 to 5, Leah. That's a lot. Right.
Yeah.
And to have to like go through this, and it's not just within the Muslim industry, not the Muslim, the modeling industry itself. There's a lot of hate you have to push through, even online, whether it's in like everyday people who are just looking at you as just another big person. And the obvious discrimination that comes with that. People have a lot of fat phobia. That's a thing online. Just because they got opinions, they're gonna give it to the next person because they feel that bigger people are less than. It's terrible. It's absolutely horrific. And then not on top of that, you being Muslim, again, it comes with another layer of people being preachy and everything else because you're a big woman in the modeling industry and you're unapologetic about it. So again, if you could bring context to that, because I can't even wrap my head around it, Leah. I just don't know how you do it.
Well, as a Black person, you kind of have to learn, from early age, I learned to compartmentalize, even during slavery. How did they get through that? Right. Compartmentalizing. Right. Like you can't, like if you look at it like, okay, I'm a slave and we're an enslaved person and I am on a plantation. And if I do anything wrong, it's over for me. Like you have to, and how do you find joy in that? How do you find, understanding and meaning? You have to compartmentalize. And it's so ingrained in Black women and other marginalized people to do that. And me and my therapist were talking about that word compartmentalize before. I called it at the time being emotionally stagnant, right? Or like kind of pushing your emotions away to get the task done. Right. But she says it's really compartmentalizing. And I was like, that's crazy. Cause like I have to do that to survive. Right. It's survival mode for me most of the time, even when I don't understand it consciously, subconsciously, I'm always in fight or flight mode. And that's why I have therapy. That's why I have a great group of people who are like constantly telling me self-care days and telling me to take breaks and stuff like that. But I have that. How many Black women, fat women, Muslim women do not have that, right? They don't have access to therapy. No. They have an abusive husband, or they have, a community that doesn't understand mental illness and how to deal with that. Telling them to take it to the rug instead of what God created, which is therapy and support groups. He created that too, you guys. So just like noted, let's stop the stigma around mental health.
Mental health, yes, please.
Anyway, and so how many people don't have that? Because I didn't have that back in the day, and almost like crumbled and imploded on myself, and had many of times where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. And so I have to compartmentalize. Honestly, I have to keep my eye on the prize. I have to figure out what my why is, and I have to constantly, when I have my breakdowns, which is quite often, I have to be like, okay, let's take a step back. What is your why? Is it about the numbers? Is it about the being affluent? Is it about getting flown out? What is this about? Let's take it back. And so I have to constantly revisit my why, which is constantly reshaping and forming, but the core values are always there. I'm in this industry to shake it up, and I want people to see people who look like themselves in the media. Right. That's my why, and I'll continue to be my why, whether it's social media, whether it's books, whether it is movies and TV and film, whether it's me behind the scene and becoming a recluse. That will always be my why. And I have to constantly remember that that's what I'm here for.
Right, right. Very important why. And again, that's the thing. I admire you so much for what you do and being present as yourself. It gives, like, not just a lot of big people, fat people who are online and all they are barraged with all this negativity, but they see you, and a lot of Muslim women as well. They see you and they see so much hope for themselves, just so that they can step out of their own and shine a little brighter. It's like it's their right to be here, exist as they are. And I love you for doing that. But here's the other thing. I mean, your first book, Unashamed, was like a memoir. Yeah. So how did it come to The Union? What drove you to write The Union? And again, I'm going to discuss all the things. I mean, not the plot, because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. Please, this. And you said dystopian novel, and I'm sitting there and like, this. Who is this a dystopian novel for as well? So we're going to get into that. But please, how did you get into writing The Union?
Yeah, so to loop it back to the beginning of the conversation, I was a writer. I was a sci-fi dystopian writer. So I wrote 3 sci-fi books before I wrote my memoir.
Right.
Nobody wanted to buy my sci-fi writing. They didn't care about my multicultural, gritty, raw sci-fi. Right. They don't care about my fantasy. And so I'm like, so maybe because like dystopian and sci-fi is dominated by white people and white writers. And so I wanted to do it, and they're like, who the fuck are you? And I'm just like, I just want to become what I want to see.
I just want to write this.
Yeah, they're like, absolutely not. Who cares about that? I'm like, crying. So when I got divorced from my former husband, we don't count that. I was so upset and mad at everybody. I was mad at like fat shamers. I was mad at my stupid ass ex, his dumbass family who couldn't cook. I was mad at white people. I was mad at the system. And I wrote a memoir, and I wasn't supposed to write them. Like, I've always written like personal essays, but never got them published. And so I wrote Unashamed out of pure anger for everybody. I was just like, F everybody. I'm writing about everything that makes you upset. And so that's how the memoir came about. I put that away. It was never supposed to see the light of day. It's supposed to be just kind of me unloading.
Right.
And then I, asked the creator, if you want me to publish this book, I need a sign. And so I ended up applying for the Gilda Award, which is like a nonfiction writers creative award in Detroit. Thousands of people every year apply for this award now, mind you. Only like 2 people are chosen each year. And so I submitted my abortion essay. Mind you, I had never, ever told anyone about it. It was a secret. And I was like, this is like a great way to unleash some trauma and also tell my story. Yeah. You didn't think I was going to win. Girl, I won the Gilda Award.
Oh, wow.
And so when I won the Gilda Award, I was like, okay, God, I see you. And then after that, I sent an Unashamed out, and in 24 hours, I had like 8 offers.
Wow.
So that was how I became a memoir writer. I was never meant to be a memoir writer. So
I see.
The Union is actually true to my roots of writing, actually.
I see.
Such a root.
But but here's the thing. And I know that, like, taking that into context, so the Union was what you wanted to write.
Yes.
And Unashamed sort of became a stepping stone to the Union.
Exactly.
So now here's the thing. I'm reading through this, and as I said before, I had a lot of feelings come up. I don't even know if I can call this a dystopian novel, because how do you view something as dystopian depends on a lot of our racial biases or racial integration in our minds. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know who the good guys and bad guys are. Do I call the good guys the bad guys or the bad guys the
Yeah,
good
that's
guys?
exactly
And
what I wanted.
and
Exactly.
I'm so conflicted, Leah V.
Yeah.
This is not fair.
Yeah. That's what I wanted, that conflict. I wanted the reader to feel very uncomfortable.
I'm
Very
so
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable with this, but
Exactly.
I'm not saying that this is fantastic because again, it helps us see a lot of things in a very different lens and a lot of, and if I had to, a lot of, I guess, um, throwbacks to present times and how things work right now as opposed to the future you've written in the Union. Please tell my audience about the Union as much as you would like, and I don't want to give away any plot lines.
Yeah, I mean, so there's so much going on in the Union. I wrote the Union 7 years ago.
Oh wow.
And so it is like she grown. She grown. That's a grown. Like Unashamed was like, boom, we wrote it in 3 months. Boom, we got to publish it next year.
Right.
The Union is definitely she's grown. She's mature.
Right.
It was funny because the beginning changed, I think, over the years, I think 8 times. But the end always remains the same.
Okay.
So in writing, usually it's like that. The beginnings change, for plot and narrative.
Mhm.
But yeah, so the Union, there's so I will say before I get into what it is, that the point of the Union is to take the reader by the collar and jerk them around a bit. Like,
Right.
so I always tell them that when you read this book, that's the experience I want you to have,
Right.
and that's the experience that you should have.
Mhm.
The Union is a reverse telling of history in the future.
Right.
And
That's the best way I can describe it.
yeah, so that's how I describe it. It's multicultural.
Mm.
We blur the lines of who's a good guy and bad guy, right? The question is asked, like, what does privilege look like? And if you had a limited privilege, what would you do with it? What would you do to keep it?
Right.
And so we have sex work in there. We have slavery references. There's
active slavery as well. It's just that
yeah.
it's not in the context that people think about it. And I think that's one of the most uncomfortable things for me. Again, I'm a reader. I've read lots of novels, but there's always a structure about oppression, oppressor, and oppressed.
Right.
But this flipped that structure. And I was like, I'm very uncomfortable with this.
I mean,
because,
it's crazy because, like, you would have to have like so much time to get into it, but a lot of Black people, we want to know what would it be like if we enslaved white people. Right. I feel like a lot of Black people and other people who've been colonized by Europeans have in their mind, what would it feel like? What would it look like if we enslaved whites or Europeans?
Right.
So that is the basis of the basis of the book. Like, we've enslaved white people in the future. How does that look? How does that feel for all nationalities?
I think that's the thing. It's one of those things that I've always wanted to see, I guess, played out somehow, in the fact that what kind of discomfort would it cause either the reader or the viewer to actually see that, maybe not exactly slavery, but when you have situations where minorities are ruling classes, and then you have those that are white people, European, in situations where they're actively discriminated against.
Right.
Like actively. Like, what would it look like? I mean, it's always been, I think, a thing in my brain, like, how would it look? But again, we've come from socio-political existences where we've never actually seen that happen, no matter what. Which is why when I was sitting there reading this, I'm like, I'm not sure who to root for anymore.
Would you ever think in your life that you'd be rooting for a white person to win?
I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, I like to do that in my regular life, in books, in my content. It's always a switch up. I never want to. I don't want people to be like, I know what Leah's going to do or say. I always want people to be like, what the fuck did you just do? Like, I like that. I get that from my grandfather, who just passed away this year. But he loved to bother people. He loved to like say things and with a straight face,
Right,
just
right.
to see what your reaction would be. And I got that from him. And I do that in all my work, as you can tell.
No, but here's the thing. I think it's a very good commentary on the fact that about human nature and human existences that this has a lot of lot of pertinent references to how slavery, injustices, discrimination exist now and before this.
Yep.
When it came to minorities and Black people in particular, very pertinent. But again, it's a matter of how people change when things are flipped, sort of thing as well. It's a deep look into how do we create an existence where it's peaceful for everybody, or if it's even possible. Are human beings just creatures that are prone to oppression of
Yeah.
one another, sort of
Mhm.
situation?
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. One that I also try to drive through as well, because we talk about oppression. There's different level of oppression, right?
Hmm.
We see it, whites against blacks. We
Right.
see black men against black women. We see it against
Hmm.
Muslim husband to Muslim wife,
Right.
mother to children. There's
Right.
different levels of oppression, and it's just wild, like in my 35 years of life, to see the different types of oppression
Right.
and how messed up it is, especially when
Hmm.
one who is oppressed oppresses another. I think
Right.
that's what really gets me and really ruffles my
Hmm.
feathers, is
Right.
when a person who has been oppressed
Mm.
oppresses their own or another. And it's
Right.
just like, how dare you?
Right.
How dare you do that? And I've seen
Right.
a lot in Islam. I've seen a lot in the Black community.
Right.
And so I'm very loud about it. Very,
Hmm.
very loud in all my work. And I think the union is a testament to that, kind
Hmm.
of like my own life experiences. And I put it in this fictionalized
Hmm.
dystopian society. But it's really something that like is a testament to what's happening now and will
Right.
probably continue to happen.
Right. If people don't get therapy, Leah V, that's the thing. Everybody go to therapy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also have empathy as well, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
most
like
definitely.
you
Most
can
definitely.
have empathy without therapy. So the fact
Right.
that we have some of us have to go to therapy to get empathy is also it's like, okay, a commentary on like human nature and like where we are as a society now.
Right. And again, the thing is, I've seen a lot of these things online where, and I dislike it when people say hurt people. But the fact is, it's also a choice that
Yep.
we are making, that everybody has some trauma. I don't think there is anybody who is devoid of some level of trauma. But if you use that trauma, that oppression to oppress other people, that is a choice.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think again, it is like very well and like I think disconcerting in certain senses when you're reading through it, put together in the union. And I'm like, I'm sitting there, I still haven't gone through it. I'm like trying to like finish it, and I've got kids coming over me like, "Ma, I need your help." Like, no, let me read this. No, but again, I think it's so great to read this. It's very refreshing, especially, and that's the other thing. Your protagonists are women, and I think
Yes.
that's so great. I mean, it's one of those things that's so hard to find. Even
Yeah.
if you like have a protagonist that's a woman, you always have this dude that's sort of there, and there's like I'm done. Like give me a good strong woman that's leading and
That's
that's
it.
fixing the messes that have been made, sort of thing. So
Yeah,
I
so I
think
purposely didn't, there is a male in there,
right, right.
but I did not want him to overshadow the
Hmm.
plot, because there's
Right.
so many, like, I personally don't like love stories.
Yeah.
If like, I don't know why, because all my friends are like, I want to watch a rom-com. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm a hardcore John Wick type of bitch. And
Yeah.
that's what I like to watch, but I also like to
Yeah.
watch women leads
Right.
in these types of very rough situations.
Right.
So although there is remnants of, I guess you can call it love, or is it circumstance?
But it's not the main thing,
It's not
Leah
the
V.
so this
That's
is
the thing.
not
When you've
no.
got like protagonists, they're always like, "Oh, she's gonna fall in love, and they're gonna be
No.
having no."
No, it's shit going on. It's shit going on.
Yeah.
You don't have
You
time
gotta
for no
save
love
the
right now.
world.
Exactly. Stuff has to go, and I think that's like again a testament to women's lives now.
Right.
There's stuff going on. Like we're
Yeah.
literally being destroyed. Okay.
Right.
Like, laws are being created and which are meant to destroy women.
Right.
You think I'm worried about a husband right now?
No.
I am not. People are like, Leah V, when are you gonna get married? There's stuff happening in this world. My goal
Yeah.
is to find a husband.
No.
What? This is not 1922. Like, what is happening?
Right. But I think that's one of the things I appreciate about the union as well. Like, it's so hard, especially it's specifically in a dystopian context. It's always some dude with a gun, like, or, big machines that are saving the day. Okay.
Yep.
This is pure, like, I guess, especially for one of the characters, the one who's oppressed, that pure grit and iron to get through what she had to get through. Is still going through. I'm still reading the book, and it's a testament to how women function. It's not all about brute force and brute strength. I mean, obviously, when you have to survive a dystopian sort of nightmare, you do need that, but it's not all that. It's a whole lot of using like your sharpness that I really appreciate about the book. And, I appreciate that you've brought this perspective here. Please tell my audience, where can they find the union and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so the union is sold everywhere where books are sold.
Right.
So if you want to go through Target, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, if you want to support your local bookstores, you can also call them and ask them to order it for you.
Right.
So they can get their cut as well, because support
Mhm.
small businesses that are Black
Yeah.
owned and owned by marginalized individuals. So yeah, you can get it pretty much anywhere online. You type it in wherever you fancy.
Yeah.
Also, you can go to leahvernon.com and also have some links there. And for Instagram, you can find me in my daily shenanigans,
Yeah.
L Vernon 2000.
Right. And they'll see all of that information on the screen so they can find you. And I'll put all of those links down in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Leah V, for being here with me. I mean, I love what you do. Okay. I've been following you ever since I found out about you. And I'm like, I mean, that's not saying much because I live under a rock half the time. I only found out about you when BuzzFeed did a feature on you and they featured Unashamed. I was like, where is she? I need to know about her. But I really appreciate all that you do for all the people who look up to you as a big, Black, beautiful woman that's out there living proud. I think that's so fantastic. So
Oh,
thank
thank you
you.
so
Thank you for
much.
being here with us. And thank you to everybody who's listened in and watched us on YouTube. Y'all take care of yourself and may peace be on you all.